Maya stood under the flickering streetlight, her breath visible in the cold November air. She glanced down at the coat she had draped over her arm, worn and frayed, but somehow comforting. The coat had belonged to her late father, a quiet man with a gentle soul. Tonight, it felt like a shield against the world, a reminder of warmth and respite during these difficult months. As she waited for the bus, Maya's mind wandered. She thought about the past few months since her father had passed. It felt empty, like a room without furniture, void of laughter, of warmth. She missed him. The way his voice softened with care, how he'd always know when something was wrong. Surely he would have known what to do with all this aching sadness. A gust of wind swept by, making her shiver. Just then she noticed a man, tall and broad-shouldered, standing a few feet away. He wore a coat that looked just like her father's, old and worn. It surprised her. She smiled before catching herself, realizing she was smiling at a stranger's coat just as she had smiled at her own. The man turned, meeting her eyes, and a spark of connection ignited for just a moment. He asked, his voice deep and rich as if it belonged to a storyteller. "I guess you could say that," Maya replied, a little surprised at her own reaction. There was something comforting about the moment. Before she could say anything more, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She retrieved it, hoping it was a message from her best friend Sarah, wanting to feel connected to someone in this chilly evening. But it wasn't. It was an email notification. Maya frowned as she opened the email, a strange feeling creeping up her spine. She clicked on it, feeling a chill deeper than the wind had caused. She read the first line and her heart sank. "Dear Mr." The email went on to describe how the coat had intrinsic value and belonged to a historical figure. Maya looked up, startled, realizing she was still standing next to the man. His coat, could it be? Her mind raced. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "James," he replied with an easy smile. She hesitated, not sure how to explain what had just happened. His expression shifted, curiosity replaced by a flicker of concern. "My coat," he shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "Yeah," he replied hesitantly. Maya glanced back down at her phone, rereading the email. Was this a mistake? Could this coat truly belong to someone like him? Her heart raced. "This coat, it might be yours," she said, sounding more confident than she felt. James blinked, processing what she was saying. "What do you mean?" "I think it has a story," Maya replied, feeling the weight of the moment. "You see, my father had the same coat. He loved it, wore it for years." James stared at her, his brow furrowed. "There's a chance it's the same coat." "I don't know," Maya said, her voice quaking. They stood there, two souls intertwined by a battered piece of fabric. The bus arrived, shaking both of them from the moment. As they boarded, Maya couldn't shake the thought that they were part of something greater than chance. After taking their seats, Maya opened her email again to find the contact for the sender. "I need to find out more," she said, determination swelling inside her. James nodded, his expression softening as he leaned closer. He asked, glancing at her screen. Maya passed him the phone, her heart thumping as he read. He said quietly, "Yeah," she whispered back. "It's weird. I feel like this coat is more than just a coat." "Maybe it's meant to come back to the owner," James said softly, his eyes glowing with an understanding that went beyond words. As the bus lurched forward, the evening skyline blurred past, bathed in the orange hue of the streetlights. With every passing moment, they became a little more connected, bound by the coat, by their stories. Absorbed in the conversation, they shared pieces of their lives. Maya talked about her father, his love for history, and how the coat felt like an extension of him. James shared that he was an aspiring writer pursuing a story about lost and found items. He was searching for meaning in the mundane. "Sometimes it's just the little moments that hold the most significance," he said, his voice low. Maya smiled at him, feeling a spark of hope. "Exactly," he said, his gaze steady. Once they reached her stop, a wave of disappointment washed over her. She didn't want this connection to end. She asked, uncertain, "Let's find out if the coat belongs to you or me," James said, his eyes narrowing with resolve as if he had just discovered a path forward. They exchanged numbers and agreed to meet over the weekend to dig deeper into the mystery. As Maya walked home, she felt lighter, liberated from the weight of her grief, even if just for the moment. That Saturday felt painfully long. Maya could barely focus on anything else. She kept replaying the moments from the bus, the way James had smiled, the stories they shared. Finally, the clock ticked to the agreed-upon hour. She stepped out of her apartment, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. What if the coat wasn't connected to her father? What if it was just a coincidence? When she arrived at the local cafe, she spotted James sitting at a corner table, his coat draped across the back of his chair. He looked up and waved as she approached, a warm smile breaking on his face. Maya smiled back. They ordered coffee, fueling their meeting with warmth, both literally and figuratively. James pulled out his laptop, ready to dive into the coat's history. He asked, tapping away. "It belonged to my dad, who loved vintage clothing," Maya said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Let's see if that turns out to be true," James said, his eyes twinkling. They spent hours digging into the coat's history. They searched online for any signs of previous owners, tracking leads that seemed to lead to dead ends. Just as Maya started to feel defeated, James hit upon something. "Wait," he exclaimed, pointing at the screen. It was an article about a famous artist known for his signature plaid coats. Maya leaned closer, her heart racing. The artist had ties to the city, and documents indicated that he had donated some of his beloved clothing to local charities after his passing. "This must be connected to him," she whispered, awe and excitement flooding her heart. James grinned, clearly caught up in the excitement too. "This is huge," Maya nodded, hoping that's true. She felt a flicker of her father's presence there in that small cafe, in a conversation that connected her to someone she had just met. "Let's dig deeper," she said, her determination ignited. They spent hours researching until they stumbled upon a gallery showcasing the artist's work. In the corner were photographs of him wearing the very coat James had. Their excitement grew, pounding like a drumbeat in Maya's heart. "This is it," James shouted, drawing looks from nearby tables. Maya could hardly breathe, the thrill of discovery washing over her like a wave. Can we trace the ownership?" James grinned, and together they dived into the research again, but this time they felt as if they had a real mission. Finally, they found an email address connected to the art gallery that had the original documentation. They sent a message with a brief explanation and asked for help. The waiting was agonizing. As the days passed, they kept in touch, sharing stories, getting to know each other better. Maya discovered that James had a deep understanding of loss too. When the email response came back, it felt like the world slowed down. They gathered at a park, anticipation thick in the air. James opened the email, his eyes scanning the screen. It is the same coat," he said, disbelief dancing in his voice. "The artist's coat." Maya felt overwhelmed. The coat had a story, and so did she. She gasped, the reality of it all hitting her. James nodded, a smile breaking across his face. Tears filled Maya's eyes. "This is incredible." "Let's do this together," James said, his expression earnest, and they did. Together they reached out, building bridges where there had been walls. As they worked through the connections, Maya felt something shift. The coat wasn't just a link to her past, it was a ticket to healing, to moving forward. Through the conversations sparked by the coat, Maya found warmth growing, something she thought might be lost forever. It connected her to a community, a history. She was no longer just holding on to memories, she was discovering the legacy intertwined with her father's. James became more than a friend, more than a fellow explorer of the past. They found comfort in each other's company, and with each shared story, each smile, they built a space that felt safe and welcoming. Eventually, grounded in their journey, they agreed to visit the gallery together. They would see the coat in its rightful place, a piece of art in its own right. As they stood before the coat, Maya felt enveloped in warmth once again. It was like her father was there, smiling gently, urging her to let go, to embrace life. "This coat is beautiful," James said, his voice gentle. Maya nodded, tears shimmering in her eyes, feeling both the loss and the promise of something new. "It is." As she stood there holding the coat that had brought them together, she realized that sometimes in the most unexpected moments we find light breaking through the darkness. This was more than a coat. It was a reminder of love, connection, and the profound hope that lies within every story. Maya stood under the flickering streetlight, a gust of chilly wind brushing past her. The cold bit at her cheeks, but she held tightly to the coat draped over her arm, an old, familiar piece. Though it had seen better days, it was a warm piece of her father that she carried close, its fabric a patchwork of memories. She waited for the bus, her thoughts drifting where they often did these days, into the vast emptiness left by her father's passing. A sadness lay over her like a heavy blanket, dulling the vibrancy of life around her. Each day blended into the next, a loop of routine that offered little comfort. Then it happened. A man stepped up to the bus stop beside her, tall and broad-shouldered. His coat looked similar to her father's vintage plaid, frayed at the edges but bursting with character. For a moment she felt a spark of connection, something familiar, something almost magical. She couldn't help but smile. It was fleeting but genuine. The man turned and caught her gaze, his eyes crinkling into a warm smile that lit up the dim gaslight. He said, breaking the silence, "Thanks," Maya replied, her heart racing. "I get it," he said, placing his hands in his pockets. Maya nodded, grateful for the shared moment. Just then her phone buzzed in her pocket. Pulling it out, she froze. Curiosity and unease clawed at her throat as she tapped to open it. "Dear Mr. Anderson," it read, "we have significant concerns regarding the ownership of your coat." Her heart raced. Mr. Anderson, that's not her name. She glanced at the man beside her, the one with the coat. "Excuse me," she managed, suddenly feeling hot, the air thickening around her. "James," he said, eyeing her curiously. His brows knitted together, surprise flickering across his face. His expression shifted, confusion giving way to realization. He stood still, brain working through the implications. Maya nodded, her heart pounding. Let's hear it," James said, crossing his arms, intrigued. The words poured out of her, the story of her father and how he had loved vintage clothes, constructing tales around each piece he wore. The coat had been a favorite, one he wore on cold afternoons when they'd walk through the city, sharing dreams and laughter. James listened intently, and Maya felt the urgency of the moment shift between them. He began, uncertainty threading through his voice. Maya hesitated, unsure of how to respond. They both stood there, two strangers at a bus stop, standing on the brink of a revelation. As the bus rolled in, they boarded, sitting next to each other. The bus rattled onward, bumping over potholes as their minds raced with possibilities. "Let's see that email again," James suggested, leaning toward her as they rode. Maya opened her phone, her heart racing with excitement. Carefully, she scrolled through the message, revealing a few more lines about past ownership. "We're looking for the original owner of the coat, someone whose name was connected to its value." As Maya read, she couldn't shake the feeling that this coat held secrets. "This really feels like a sign," she said, glancing at James. "Maybe," he replied thoughtfully. "Let's find out when we get off." They disembarked, both fueled by an unspoken need to unravel the mystery. That evening, in a cozy cafe lit by warm amber lights, James pulled out his laptop, his fingers almost dancing over the keys. "We have to search for its history," he urged, his energy contagious. Maya felt a flicker of hope that had been dulled for months. Together, they combed through websites tracing the coat's origins. Their late-night research sessions turned into a ritual, each click revealing threads of a deeper narrative. Hours passed, but as the clock struck midnight, Maya felt something shift within her. It was more than just a search for a coat. It was a journey into understanding grief, connection, and the power of shared stories. One night, as they unraveled another layer of history, an article caught Maya's eye. It told the story of a once renowned artist who had worn similar coats, their value linked to memories and cultural significance. She whispered, excitement bubbling inside her. James leaned closer, studying the screen. If it was his coat, it might have immense value. Maya whispered, unsure of how she felt. "What if it's nothing? What if it's—" James turned to her, serious. "But it's not just a coat, it's your father's legacy. Ultimately, it's something to hold on to." That struck a chord deep within her. As emotion welled up, she fought back tears. For the first time, stepping into this adventure felt comforting. Days turned into weeks as they dug through archives, piecing together clues. While the search continued, Maya noticed something blossoming between them, an undeniable spark. They shared laughter, moments that felt sacred, wrapped in shared solitude and unknowingly healing. Then came the day they finally received a response from the gallery housing the artwork and thus possibly the coat's origins. Both of them huddled over the laptop, fingers gripped tight, hearts racing. "Dear Ms. Anderson," James read, "your inquiry regarding the vintage coat has intrigued us." Maya held her breath, almost unable to process it. Her heart nearly leaped from her chest. "It's real," she exclaimed, shaking her head in disbelief. James turned to her, a broad grin lighting his face. "We need to meet them." And so they made the plan. The gallery had a reputation for treasuring the memories within each piece. Maya felt a flutter of excitement, yet anxiety danced in the pit of her stomach. When the day arrived, they stood outside the gallery, a building overlooked by tall trees, sunlight draping everything in a golden hue. The ancient charm of the exterior whispered stories of times long past. Maya clutched her father's coat, a lifeline tethering her to memories of warmth and laughter. James asked, his own nervousness barely contained. "Ready as I'll ever be," Maya replied, taking a deep breath. Inside the gallery, the air was filled with mystery and stories. The walls vibrated with colors and histories, each painting holding its breath. An attendant guided them to a room filled with testimonials of the artist's life and art. Once in the presence of the curator, Maya felt time slow. Maya shared her father's love for vintage clothing, her memories swirling as she spoke. James chimed in, firing enthusiasm into the conversation. As the curator listened, the weight of their words filled the room. There was silence after she finished. Finally, the curator smiled warmly. "This coat indeed belongs to the artist's collection." Maya looked at James, then back at the curator, emotions spiraling in her chest. "It means," the curator said, "this coat holds more than just monetary value." Maya glanced down at the coat, feeling tears prick at her eyes. It's not just a coat. When the meeting ended, there was warmth in her heart, but uncertainty lingered. They could sell it or donate it, but it was her father's. What would he want? As they stepped back outside, James shared a thoughtful smile. The evening wrapped around them like a comforting hug as they walked, the city alive with lights and laughter. Days turned into weeks, and Maya took the time to reflect. In conversations with James, voices carried the weight of understanding. Laughter wrapped them in a shared experience that felt significant. Eventually, she knew she needed to take action. Maya reached out to a local charity that focused on art therapy for children, realizing that giving the coat would provide them inspiration, the very same inspiration she had felt. The moment was bittersweet, yet empowering. Holding the coat as she prepared to let it go felt like releasing a piece of herself, but also embracing a future where new stories could unfold. On the day of the handover, James stood beside her, an unwavering support. As they placed the coat in the hands of the charity, Maya felt a sigh of relief wash over her. "My father would have loved this," she said softly, glancing at James. "Of course," he replied, his voice steady. Amid the tender connection forged in grief, they both understood the true value of the coat. It wasn't about wealth, it was about legacy, about heartstrings pulled across time and space. As Maya walked away from the charity, she felt lighter. A chapter had closed, but a new one was just beginning, woven with stories shared, connections made, and a hope that glimmered in the unexpected. Glancing at James, she realized they had become part of each other's journeys. "Thank you for this," she whispered, meaning it profoundly. He smiled back, acknowledging the weight of their adventure, the bond that had formed amid coats and memories. That moment beneath the sprawling sky and neon city lights, Maya felt more connected to life than ever before, no longer weighed down by grief but lifted by stories waiting to be told. Maya's breath clouded in the crisp air as the bus rattled to stop. She stepped off, pulling her scarf tighter around her neck. It was one of those evenings where the chill crept into your bones, signaling the approach of winter. Walking down the street, she noticed a tall man in a plaid coat that looked eerily familiar. Something about the way it hung on his shoulders tugged at a buried memory, and she couldn't help but smile at it. Then she caught his gaze. He raised an eyebrow, giving a small nod as if to acknowledge their shared appreciation for vintage style. There was something inviting in the moment. She felt a flicker of warmth in her chest, a reminder that beauty could exist even on the coldest of days. "Nice coat," she called out, her voice rising above the bustle of the city. He replied, his voice deep and friendly. "I found it at a thrift store." Maya nodded, her thoughts slipping to her father and the old coat he wore, frayed and soft with years of love. Just then her phone buzzed violently in her pocket, shattering the moment. She pulled it out, expecting a message from her best friend, but it was something else, an email notification. She frowned as she opened it. Intrigued, she clicked it open. "Dear Mr. Anderson," it began. The chill swept through her, realizing the email didn't involve her at all. It continued detailing the coat's significance, its intricate backstory linked to a historical artist. Maya's heart raced. She looked back at the man in the plaid coat. She said, her voice trembling slightly. "James," he replied, showing confusion. His brow furrowed. "This email." His eyes widened in disbelief. "Yes." He stood upright, curiosity etched on his face. "Okay, that's wild." She quickly read the message aloud, her heart pounding. It mentioned the coat's original owner being a renowned artist and urged Mr. Anderson to contact them. James turned, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "So what do we do?" The tension in the air shifted. Maya felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I don't know." The bus arrived and they boarded together, the mood electric with possibility. As they found a seat, the bus lurched into motion and her mind raced, thoughts colliding like waves. Maya asked, "Thrift store," he replied, scratching his head. "But I didn't know it had a story." "Cool, but also possibly valuable," she said, barely containing her awe. James chuckled, shaking his head as if trying to dispel a fantasy. "I doubt it." The more they talked, the more Maya felt a connection to the stranger, linked by the coat's mysterious origins. It was exhilarating, like a puzzle begging to be solved. When the bus reached her stop, she wasn't ready to leave. She asked, hopeful. "That sounds like a plan," he said, his smile broadening. They exchanged numbers and agreed to meet over the weekend to dig into the coat's history. That night, Maya sat in her room, excitement and anxiety battling within her. She touched the coat draped over her chair, feeling its fabric. It was a part of her past, just as it was part of his strangely intricate present. The days crawled toward their meeting, a countdown of nervous anticipation. Finally, Saturday arrived, and there she was at the cafe, heart pounding against her ribcage as she watched James walk in. The warmth of the cafe contrasted sharply with her bubbling anxiety. He grinned, settling down across from her. They pulled out their laptops, the world outside fading away as they dove into research. James opened a search engine, and they began uncovering the coat's past. They sifted through records, artist portfolios, and interviews. Hours passed, filled with discoveries, rabbit holes, and shared laughter that brought a lightness to Maya's heart. Suddenly, an article popped up on the screen, an old write-up about the artist who had worn a coat exactly like James's, detailing how he had donated clothing after his death. Maya said, her fingers trembling over the keys. As the pieces began to connect, Maya felt something wash over her, a sense of purpose and hope, a shared mission that grew with every clue they uncovered. But as the night wore on, that hope was tinged with doubt. What if the coat didn't belong to the artist? What if it was all a cruel trick of fate? "Let's not lose sight of what this means for you, Maya," James said softly, sensing the shift in her mood. "Yeah," she whispered, impressed. Feeling a surge of confidence, Maya nodded. The coat represented her father's love. How could it just be fabric? Finally, they decided to email the art gallery that handled the artist's estate. They poured their hearts into the message, sharing their journey and asking for clarity. Once sent, they felt a heavy weight lift off their shoulders, but doubt lingered. The next few days were torturous, each moment dragging until the long-anticipated reply arrived. Maya opened the email, holding her breath as she read. "Dear Ms. Anderson," it began, "we appreciate your inquiry about the vintage coat." James leaned closer, eyes wide, excitement flaring in his chest. "This is it." Maya could hardly process the words flying before her. Tears prickled at the corners of her eyes. The weight of possibilities echoed in the air. They both stared at each other, excitement dancing behind their eyes. They made arrangements to meet with the gallery the following week. As the bright day of their meeting dawned, Maya felt a whirlwind of emotions. She had spent nights thinking about this moment. Would they find the coat worth more than its fabric? Would it rekindle her father's spirit? When they arrived at the gallery, the walls were draped in the hues of artistry and history, and the air buzzed with creativity. The staff led them to a large art room, and standing there was a curator with a knowing smile. "Welcome." "We were intrigued by your story," the curator said, inviting them to sit. Maya shared her father's connection to vintage clothing and how this coat felt like a tether to her memories. As she spoke, the room thickened with emotion, each word heavy with significance. The curator listened intently. "This coat carries a legacy. We wish to explore its roots further," they said thoughtfully. Maya asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice. "It means this coat can be more than just an item." Maya exchanged glances with James, their unspoken understanding coursing through the air. The coat wasn't simply a thread of fabric, it was a vessel, a conversation starter that could forge connections between strangers. As the meeting concluded, Maya felt a sense of release, a wave crashing over her, washing away her hesitations. Whatever decision lay ahead, the coat had opened doors she hadn't known existed. The next few days unfolded like a dream as they pieced their story together, bringing in the history of the coat, her father's passion for life, and the artist's legacy. But alongside the excitement thrummed a persistent anxiety. Maya asked, voice shaking. James reached out, resting a hand on hers. "You won't. This is about what feels right in your heart." Extraordinary moment of clarity. Maya knew she didn't need to cling to the coat for love. Her father lived on not through possessions, but through shared experiences, lessons, laughter, and memories that would never fade away. Finally, she decided they would share it with the community, using it to launch an art initiative focusing on emotional healing through creativity. The coat would be part of workshops, giving children inspiration and purpose. The day of the handover felt heavy and liberating at once. With James by her side, they presented the coat to the charity, and she felt a joyous weight lift off her shoulders. "Thank you," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes as she placed the coat in their hands. James stood alongside her, his presence a steadfast anchor. "Together we created something beautiful," he said softly. As they walked away, taking in the vibrancy of the city, Maya felt a wave of peace. The coat had brought her here, to this moment where she understood that loss need not be a chain. It could also be a bridge uniting people through empathy and love. Every day forward felt filled with possibilities, each dawn whispering the adventures waiting to unfold. With James by her side, she realized they had formed an unbreakable bond through this journey. Two strangers woven together by an ordinary yet extraordinary coat that sparked a legacy of connection. And in that moment, beneath the sprawling sky and the laughter of children resonating behind them, Maya knew her father's spirit would always be with her, guiding, loving, and forever intertwined in her story. Maya stepped off the bus, her breath visible in the crisp autumn air. She was lost in her thoughts, replaying the week in her mind, a messy swirl of deadlines, unanswered messages, and the nagging feeling of loneliness that seemed to follow her these days. But just as she was about to continue her walk home, something caught her eye. A man stood nearby, tall with a casual posture, his coat hanging elegantly over his broad shoulders. It was a vintage plaid coat, frayed at the cuffs but rich with character. For a moment she felt a strange connection, a sense of familiarity. A smile tugged at her lips as she took in the sight, almost as if she were smiling at an old friend. "Nice coat," she called out hesitantly, unsure if he would respond. He looked up, surprised by her compliment, and a smile broke across his face. "Thanks, found it at a thrift store." There was something genuine about his enthusiasm, something that stirred a warmth inside her. She shifted her weight, her gaze still on the coat. For a split second, she thought of her father, who wore a similar one, the smell of old leather and memories blending into one. She could almost hear his laughter echoing in her ears. As she was about to say something more, her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the moment. She pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A strange mix of anxiety and curiosity gripped her. Who was this about? Then the contents of the email hit her like a ton of bricks. "Dear Mr. Anderson," it began, and her breath caught. Mr. Anderson, that wasn't her name. But then it continued, detailing how the coat had been found and its previous ownership, a renowned artist she'd never heard of, tied to a historical significance that made her pulse quicken. Her mind spun as she looked back at the man beside her. "Excuse me," she said, a little breathless. "James," he replied, his brow knitting together in confusion. "Yeah, that's me, I think." His eyes widened in shock. "My coat." Maya's heart raced as she explained, reading snippets from the email and watching his face morph from confusion to disbelief. James straightened, visibly intrigued. "I found it at a thrift store, but if it has a story..." The air around them felt charged, alive with possibility. Then it hit her. She was standing next to the owner of the coat mentioned in the email. It was surreal, like stepping into a movie. She said, a spark igniting within her. They boarded the bus together, both of them buzzing with energy. The ride felt quick as they dove deeper into the mystery that had so unexpectedly come into their lives. Maya asked, her mind racing with possibilities. "Just a small thrift shop on Elm Street. The guy behind the counter said it had character," James explained, visibly excited now. "Character, huh? I think it might just be a sign," Maya responded, her eyes twinkling. James nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe it's some cosmic thing." A light laugh escaped her lips as the bus came to her stop. "I can't argue with that. Absolutely, he said, a grin breaking across his face. They strolled into a cozy cafe, the inviting scent of roasted coffee swirling around them. The moment they settled into a booth, the real work began. They whipped out their phones, ready to dive into the digital realm of history and ownership. Maya's heart thudded not just with excitement, but also a deeper sense of longing as she pulled up the email. Over steaming cups of coffee, they combed through articles and archives, desperately trying to connect the dots. As James typed furiously, excitement danced in his eyes. What if this coat was actually part of something bigger? Maya finished, her voice rising with enthusiasm. Exactly, they spent hours researching, even as daylight turned to dusk outside the window. Each new piece of information felt like a treasure unearthed, the anticipation bubbling between them. Stories flowed and their laughter echoed through the cafe, creating a warm cocoon around them. But with every bit of new information, doubt crept in like a shadow. Maya asked quietly, tracing her fingers around the rim of her cup. James looked at her, his expression serious for a moment. Even if it is a coincidence, it's still a story. Stories have power, Maya. A small smile formed on her lips. The mention of her father brought a wave of bittersweet nostalgia. He had always been passionate about finding stories in the most unexpected places, instilling in her a love for the forgotten and overlooked. She could almost hear his laughter, urging her to chase after whatever sparked joy in her heart. Eventually, they stumbled upon an article about the artist who had worn a coat suspiciously like the one James had. As they read, he had lived a life marked by creativity and tragedy, leaving behind not just art but a powerful legacy. Maya felt an electric jolt of realization wash over her. This coat, it carries both passion and pain. James nodded, visibly moved, and that's what makes it special. They decided to take a risk and reach out to the art gallery connected to the artist's estate, sharing the journey that had brought them together. With their hearts pounding, they hit send, the weight eliciting a combination of hope and anxiety. Days passed, each one dragging as they awaited a response. Maya found herself checking her phone obsessively, a mix of anticipation and dread building within her. She worried aloud one evening, her voice trembling slightly. James, sitting beside her on the couch, laid his hand on hers. But what if it's more valuable than we ever imagined? Don't lose hope. His reassurance grounded her, and she took a deep breath, letting go of her fears for the moment. They shared a quiet companionship, one that felt rare and special. Finally, the email notification arrived, causing her heart to race. They opened it together, scanning for key phrases eagerly. Dear Ms. Maya held her breath, James's fingers curling tightly around his coffee cup. A mixture of relief and joy washed over them. Excitement bubbled up as they made arrangements for a meeting at the gallery. The day arrived, and as she walked through the plush galleries filled with art, Maya felt exhilarated and more than a little anxious. This was a world she loved but had never truly engaged with until now. The air buzzed with creativity, each piece of art speaking volumes of the stories behind them. When they met with the curator, a poised woman with keen eyes, Maya felt the weight of expectation pressing down. Tell me about the coat, the curator said, her voice smooth and inviting. Maya took a deep breath. As she spoke, she noticed James nodding in agreement, his presence emboldening her. The curator listened intently, her gaze focused on both Maya and James. This coat is filled with stories, and art is about sharing those narratives. Maya's heart raced. The curator paused, a contemplative look on her face. James piped in, his curiosity piqued. It means we'll share this coat's story, showcasing how objects can connect us to deeper emotions and perhaps inspire others, the curator explained. Maya felt a wave of warmth as she absorbed the words. It was more than just a coat, it was a bridge to understanding emotions, loss, and the power of connection. So this isn't just about the coat's value, it's about sharing the impact it can have, she said, her heart swelling with hope. Exactly, the curator replied. In that moment, everything clicked into place. Maya felt a profound sense of purpose, realizing that while she had embarked on this journey to find the coat's value, she had truly discovered so much more herself, her father's legacy, and a partnership that blossomed between her and James. As the meeting came to a close, Maya looked at James, tears of joy brimming in her eyes. Thank you for being part of this, she said, heartfelt and sincere. James smiled, his warm gaze meeting hers. Later, as they walked through the city streets, the cool breeze brushing against them, Maya felt a comforting presence envelop her, reminder of her father, a whisper in her heart urging her forward. She asked, fear creeping back in. Absolutely, James replied confidently. Maya smiled, sensing the truth of his words. She had stepped into a new chapter of her life, one filled with purpose, connection, and stories waiting to be told. The coat had brought them together, and now it would serve as a vessel to inspire others. As they parted ways that evening, she glanced back, feeling a rush of gratitude for the serendipity that had woven their paths together. The artist, the coat, her father, these connections sparked vibrancy in the otherwise ordinary rhythm of life. Walking home, Maya felt a lightness in her step. She understood that life is woven with reminders of love, loss, and the stories we carry. Each thread intertwined with experience, and every encounter still unfolding into something beautiful. The future looked bright, beckoning with adventures, each step guided by the stories waiting to be written, and in that she finally felt at peace. Maya stepped into the cafe, the warm aroma of fresh coffee enveloping her like a familiar hug. It was the kind of cold, rainy day that made everyone crave warmth and comfort. She shook off her umbrella and scanned the room until her eyes landed on a handsome stranger, casually leaning against the counter in a plaid coat that caught her attention. There was something vintage about it, a certain charm that reminded her of her father. He had worn a coat like that, one that held memories of long walks in the park, whispered secrets, and laughter. Maya felt an unexpected smile spread across her face as she assessed the stranger and his coat, thinking how perfectly it suited him. She called out, her voice ringing in the air like a welcome bell. He turned, surprised but intrigued by the compliment. "Thanks, it's an old thrift store find," he said, adjusting the collar like a proud parent. "Thrift stores have the best treasures," she replied, leaning against the counter herself, feeling the warmth of their brief connection. For a moment they exchanged light banter, their words dancing in the air between them. Maya found herself drawn to his easy smile and genuine vibe, something refreshing on this dreary day. Yet that small moment was interrupted when her phone buzzed in her pocket. A wave of confusion washed over her as she opened the email. "Dear Mr. Anderson," began, her breath caught in her throat. Mr. Anderson, this wasn't for her. Yet the email went on to describe a vintage coat, detailing its origins and previous ownership, someone significant. The stranger noticed her changing expression. He asked, concern knitting his brow. "It might be," she stammered, her heart racing. "I just got an email about a coat, but it's not mine." His face turned serious, eyes narrowing in curiosity. "I'm James Anderson." Her heart pounded. Was this a coincidence? She exclaimed. He took a step closer, intrigued now. Maya glanced back at her phone, the words swirling like a puzzle waiting to be solved. "It says something about tracing the coat's history and its original owner." James's eyes widened. An artist. With both curiosity and urgency, she read more of the email aloud. It spoke of the coat's mysterious past, how it had been donated to a thrift shop, and how its true value was connected to the artist's legacy. The air between them pulsed with electricity, a shared thrill taking hold. "I found this coat just 2 days ago," James said, incredulous. "I can't believe it," Maya breathed, excitement bubbling within her. James replied, his enthusiasm infectious. "Let's meet up, we can dig into this," Maya suggested, her heart racing with possibilities. They quickly exchanged numbers and promised to meet the next day, both feeling the spark of an unexpected adventure unfolding. The next day felt like an eternity. Maya paced around her apartment, her mind racing with questions. What could they uncover? Would the coat really lead them to something extraordinary? When they finally met at a small cafe that glowed with warmth, Maya's excitement reached new heights. As she sat across from James, their laughter filled the air, merging with the cafe's ambient sounds. James asked eagerly, leaning forward with anticipation. Maya opened her laptop, heart pounding at the thought of what they might find. They combed through information together, hands typing, eyes scanning the screen. Hour after hour, curiosity led them down rabbit holes filled with Leeds-old articles, artist records, and interviews. They were two detectives on the hunt, fueled by an inexplicable bond that grew stronger with each revelation. But as they delved deeper, doubt flickered like a candle in a corner of Maya's mind. What if I'm imagining all this? What if it really is just? James turned to her, his expression earnest. "But it's not just a coat, Maya. It's connected to a story, to a person's legacy." "Absolutely, everything has a story, especially objects like this." His conviction ignited a spark inside her, and they both leaned back into the search, laughter and shared passion filling the cafe as they continued. Hours passed, and a new article caught Maya's eye. She exclaimed, her mind racing. James leaned over, scanning the screen. This coat belonged to a famous artist known for his unique style, and look, Maya's heart raced. "Then this coat may actually carry weight." "I knew it would be more than we thought," James replied, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. With the pieces slowly falling into place, they decided it was time to reach out to the art gallery connected to the artist. They crafted a heartfelt email explaining their findings, detailing their connection to the coat, and humbly requesting more information. The next couple of days passed slowly as they waited for a response. Moment felt like an eternity for Maya, each hour stretching out as she anxiously checked her email. "Maya, remember, it's not just about the outcome," James reminded her one evening, his voice calm. "I know," she said, nodding, but still the doubt nagged at her. What if their excitement was for nothing? What if it led to a dead end? Finally, the email came. Maya opened it with trembling fingers, the anticipation building as she read. "Dear Ms. Anderson, thank you for reaching out regarding the vintage coat." Gasped, disbelief washing over her. James let out a cheer, his joy infectious. "This is it, Maya." When the day of the meeting arrived, Maya felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. They walked into the gallery, the smell of fresh paint and polished wood surrounding them, the air buzzing with creativity. Each piece of art spoke to her, but her heart raced for the coat that had brought her here. They were ushered into a stylish office where the curator, a poised woman with a warm smile, greeted them. "Welcome." As Maya shared her journey, the discovery of the email and her father's connection to vintage clothing, she felt her courage building. With every syllable, the weight of the past lifted, leaving room for hope. When she finished, there was a moment of silence, the room thick with emotion. "This coat holds a unique narrative," the curator said thoughtfully. Maya's heart soared. "Really?" The curator nodded. "And it could inspire others," James chimed in, his excitement palpable. "Yes," the curator agreed, her eyes shining. Maya felt as if the universe was aligning, offering her not just answers but a sense of purpose. "This is incredible," she breathed, her heart full. "Sometimes the smallest moments lead to the biggest changes," the curator said, smiling back. After the meeting, Maya and James stepped outside, the sun shining down on them. She felt a rush of exhilaration. James grinned. "This is just the beginning. Think of the stories we'll uncover." Their smiles faded slightly as the weight of reality settled back in. "What about the coat? What if it ends up being?" Maya said, fear creeping in once again. James placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "No matter what, it's already done what it needed to do. It brought us together." It explored the past. After weeks of preparation and hard work, the exhibit opened. The gallery buzzed with excitement as visitors filled the space, marveling at the artwork and the stories behind each piece. And there, displayed prominently, was the coat encased in glass, surrounded by photographs and stories that Maya had poured her heart into. It became more than just an article of clothing. It transformed into a vessel of emotion, history, and connection. As Maya stood beside the exhibit, watching families and friends engage with her story, she felt a warmth spread through her. James joined her, an expression of pride on his face. "You did it," he said, his voice full of admiration. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes. "We did it," she corrected him, looking at him with gratitude. People moved through the exhibit, drawn in by the stories woven into the fabric of the coat, the laughter and joy pouring out of each narrative. Maya accepted the appreciation flowing towards her with an open heart. In that moment, she realized how far she had come, not just with the coat, but in her journey of healing and connecting with others. Later that evening, as the gallery began to empty, James and Maya stood together, the glowing lights casting a warm ambience around them. "This journey transformed me," Maya said, her voice firm. James nodded knowingly. "Art does that." As they left the gallery, the night air felt fresh and invigorating. The streets were alive with laughter, echoes of positivity swirling around them. Maya asked, glancing sideways at James. "Wherever the next adventure lies together," he replied, his warmth filling her with confidence. As they walked side by side, Maya felt the deep connections they had forged through their shared experience and the coat that had brought them together. And in that moment, she understood the value of warmth, connection, and stories that bring meaning into our lives. Everything she had experienced, her father's love, the unexpected surprise of a stranger, and the unfolding journey had led her to this point. With a smile on her face, Maya stepped forward, ready for whatever awaited them next. The world felt brighter, painted with possibilities, and in that glow, she discovered her strength. She knew now that every moment mattered, each one leading to something bigger and more beautiful than she could have imagined. Maya stepped into the bustling coffee shop, shaking off the drizzle that had been falling all morning. The sound of clinking cups and laughter filled the air, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. It was one of those mornings where you could feel the city's pulse thumping with life. As she walked toward the counter, her attention was snagged by a tall man standing beside her. His coat caught the light in a peculiar way, plaid, well-worn but charming, like it had stories to tell. She blurted out, her smile genuine and bright. He turned, surprised, and smiled back. "Thanks, it's an old thrift store find," he replied, running a hand over the fabric. Suddenly, that coat looked so familiar. It whispered memories of her father, his love of vintage clothing, how he'd often say that each piece carried a story. The back of her throat tightened, but she pushed the emotion aside, drawn into the moment with this stranger. "Thrift stores really do have the best treasures," she said, feeling a connection spark between them. Before the conversation could deepen, her phone buzzed furiously in her pocket. Pulling it out, she noticed an email notification blinking at her. Her heart raced as she opened the email. "Dear Mr. Anderson," began. Mr. Anderson, that's not her name. Panic bubbled up as she continued reading. The email described a vintage coat linked to an artist's estate and instructed Mr. Anderson to respond immediately. Maya turned to the man, her heart pounding. "Excuse me, James," he said, looking puzzled. "Yeah," he replied, surprise flickering across his face. Maya felt a rush of adrenaline. His eyes widened, a mixture of excitement and confusion washing over him. "My coat." She read the email aloud, detailing how the coat had a significant history and urging the owner to come forward. As the words filled the air between them, the cafe seemed to fade away. James's expression shifted from disbelief to anticipation. "I don't know," she said, her voice shaky with excitement. Within moments, they agreed to dig into the mystery together. They grabbed coffees and settled at a small table, their minds racing as if they were detectives on a thrilling chase. Maya asked, eager to uncover this web of fate. "I bought it at a small thrift store down the street," he replied, eyes gleaming. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this coat was special. They pored over their smartphones, tapping swiftly as they searched for any connection to that coat. Hours passed, but with each bit of information, the connection between them grew deeper. They laughed, shared stories, and even leaned into the excitement of their budding partnership. But a nagging doubt crept in. Maya asked, her voice lowering. James leaned in, sincere. His words resonated with her. Memories of her father flickered in her mind, reminding her of the importance of stories, of the adventures that lie in unexpected places. You're right. As the cafe buzzed around them, Maya felt like they were in their own world, a bubble filled with possibility and mystery. After a while, they stumbled across an article about the artist. It spoke of his life, his struggles, and his eccentric wardrobe. There, in a small photograph, was a coat that looked strikingly familiar. Maya exclaimed, pulling up the image for James to see. He leaned closer, studying the screen. Fueled by excitement, they composed an email to the gallery named in the article, sharing their findings and asking for further information about the coat. It felt like they were standing on the brink of something monumental, but then came the waiting. The days rolled by, filled with uncertainty and longing. Maya found herself checking her email obsessively, fingers tapping nervously against the desk. Each ding of her phone sent a shiver through her. She asked James one evening. The weight of her worry hung heavy in the air. We'll just have to wait and see. Either way, we've ventured into a cool chapter, he reassured, his voice calm but optimistic. Maya appreciated his steadfastness, but that didn't quell her anxiety. Every hour felt like an eternity, waiting for a sign that they weren't chasing shadows. Finally, that moment arrived. Her phone dinged with an email notification, and her heart raced as she opened it. Dear Ms. Anderson, the email began. Thank you for your interest regarding the coat. Maya's heart soared, a mixture of disbelief and thrill breaking across her face. James jumped from his chair, his excitement infectious. This is it. When the day of the meeting arrived, Maya could hardly contain her nerves. She dressed carefully, heart racing as they approached the gallery, a stunning building filled with history and artistry. The air buzzed with anticipation. Inside, they were greeted by a curator, a woman with sharp eyes and an inviting smile. Welcome, Maya took a deep breath. It belonged to my father, who loved vintage clothing. As she spoke, the curator listened intently, her expression shifting to one of interest. With every detail, Maya felt the weight lift off her shoulders, the hope, the memories. This was more than just about the coat, it was about connections across time and space. She could see James nodding beside her, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. The curator leaned back in her chair as Maya finished. This coat carries a narrative beyond just fabric. Maya felt a rush of energy. Yes, it can serve as a poignant reminder of how clothing tells stories, how it connects us to expressions of identity and emotion. Her heart raced at the thought. James's broad smile mirrored Maya's feelings. The curator's enthusiasm was contagious. Exactly. As they left the gallery, the sky had shifted from gray to a soft blue, illuminated by the colors of evening. Maya looked at James, an overwhelming sense of gratitude washing over her. She said, her voice barely above a whisper, "More than that, we found a piece of ourselves along the way," he replied, their journey evident in his eyes. Weeks passed as they prepared for the exhibit opening. Maya dedicated herself to sharing her father's story, curating photographs and memories that spoke of his love for life and adventure. Each day she spent working with James felt thrilling, their connection deepening with every shared moment and laughter. On the day of the exhibit, tension and excitement filled the air. The gallery buzzed with energy, filled with art lovers eager to discover the narrative surrounding the coat. Maya stood in front of the display, a silent wave of emotion crashing over her. The coat was framed beautifully, photographs depicting her father, images of the artist, and stories detailing the journey that had led to this moment. It felt surreal, almost magical. As people began to filter in, Maya watched their expressions shift from curiosity to warmth, each visitor connecting with the story in their own way. It was a celebration of love, loss, and legacy, all wrapped up in the fibers of that coat. Then James appeared at her side, pride lighting up his face. "Look at how they're connecting with it," he said, gesturing toward a group of visitors deeply engaged with the display. "I can't believe this is happening," Maya admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "Your father would be so proud," James reassured her, placing a hand on her shoulder. The night unfolded with laughter and connection. Stories flowed like the wine being poured, each guest sharing their own experiences, feelings, and connections. Amid the joy, Maya felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. The coat wasn't just a relic, it had become a vessel for others to share and explore their own stories. It had bridged the gap between her past and the future. She was beginning to carve out a future filled with potential, opportunities, and a newfound sense of belonging. As the evening came to a close, Maya stood with James, overlooking the exhibit one last time. The room felt alive with voices and laughter, the energy palpable. "Thank you for everything," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. James smiled softly. "No, thank you. We embarked on this journey together." Maya nodded, feeling the moment wrap around them like a warm embrace. As they walked out of the gallery, the night air felt fresh and invigorating. Each step resonated with the promise of new experiences, new stories waiting to unfold. and as they parted ways, Maya felt an overwhelming sense of joy-bubbling excitement thrumming through her veins. She glanced back one last time, knowing that this was just the beginning of an incredible journey, one woven through destiny, connection, and the magic of a vintage coat. With a smile gracing her lips, she stepped forward into a world bursting with possibility, heart open and ready for whatever awaited her next. Maya's heart raced as she stepped off the bus, her breath visible in the cold autumn air. She wrapped her vintage scarf tighter around her neck, its edges fraying, a memento from her father who had always insisted that second-hand treasures told the best stories. As she walked down the crowded street, she noticed a tall man standing at a crosswalk wearing a familiar plaid coat that looked like it had lived through decades of adventures. A smile spread across her face without thought. She hesitated but couldn't resist the urge. She called out, her voice cutting through the hum of the city. He turned, surprise flashing in his eyes. "Thanks, found it at a thrift shop," he replied, a broad smile lighting his face. Maya felt an unexpected warmth spread through her. It was odd how that coat made her feel a connection to him, a fleeting moment of familiarity. She was reminded of her father, who had always worn coats like that, worn but full of character, just like him. "Those thrift shops really have gems," she said, leaning against a lamppost, feeling the weight of nostalgia tugging at her heartstrings. Before they could delve deeper into conversation, her phone buzzed insistently in her pocket. A knot formed in her stomach as she opened the email. "Dear Mr. Anderson," it read, and her heart skipped. That wasn't her name, but the email continued to describe a coat linked to a significant artist and urged its owner to respond. Maya looked up, breath quickening. "Excuse me, James," he replied, confusion pinching his brow. "Yeah, that's me. I just got an email about a coat," she mumbled, her voice barely above a whisper. His eyes widened and she felt the atmosphere shift, their earlier chatter replaced by a shared intrigue and disbelief. She read aloud, her heart pounding with each line, detailing the coat's history and how it belonged to an artist known for his flamboyant style. The email hinted at a deeper significance that sent chills down her spine. "I bought this at a thrift store 2 days ago," James said, stepping closer, excitement mingling with disbelief. "Maybe it's meant to be," Maya mused, feeling the electric pull of fate drawing them together. They exchanged numbers in a rush, their excitement palpable as they agreed to meet the next day to dig deeper into the coat's mysterious past. As she walked away, her mind swirled with possibilities. Could this coat be the key to something special? Next day seemed to drag on, each second stretching into eternity. Maya spent the hours replaying the brief encounter, every detail of James's smile and that coat etched in her memory. She arrived at the cafe early, her heart pounding, eagerly anticipating what they might uncover together. James arrived, a grin spreading across his face as he waved. She replied, feeling buoyed by his enthusiasm. They settled down at a corner table, the aroma of coffee filling the air, and prepared to dive into the mystery. Maya pulled her laptop out, fingers trembling with excitement. As they typed, their fingers danced across the keyboard, flipping through articles and archives. Hours passed, filled with laughter and stories that drew them closer. They discovered snippets about the artist's life, twisted tales of fame, heartache, and resilience. Maya felt a strange kinship forming, bonding them through the shared act of exploration. But doubt crept in, tinged with the chill of the fall air filtering through the cafe's window. Maya whispered, her voice laced with anxiety. James turned to her, earnestness shining through his eyes. "Even if it doesn't, we're creating a story of our own." His words resonated in a way that ignited her spirit. Life was filled with uncertainties, but this was an adventure, a chance to connect, not just with a coat, but with something deeper. Encouraged, they pushed on, and after hours of research, they stumbled upon an article featuring the artist's last exhibition, which prominently highlighted his collectible coats. James asked, excitement bubbling between them. "Could be," Maya said, feeling hope flutter within her. Inspired, they decided to reach out to the gallery that handled the artist's estate. They composed an email, pouring their shared enthusiasm into words that flowed like poetry, a plea to connect the past with their present. Then came the waiting. Days languished, filled with uncertainty and anticipation. Every time Maya checked her phone, each notification sent a jolt of hope through her. She finally asked James during a quiet moment. He sat back, considering her question. "Then we try again." As the days turned into a week, the weight of impatience bore down on Maya. What if the coat really was just a piece of fabric? But deep down, she felt a flicker of hope. Finally, an email notification came through like a bolt of lightning. She opened it with trembling fingers, words blurred until her eyes adjusted. "Dear Ms. Anderson," the email began, "we are interested in your inquiry regarding the vintage coat." "James," she shouted, nearly spilling her coffee as joy surged through her. He jumped up, excitement tangible in the air as they both marked their calendars. The day of the meeting dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the nervous fluttering in her stomach. Maya dressed carefully, attention to detail inspired by the gravity of the occasion. When she and James arrived at the gallery, the blend of history and artistry surrounded them, making her pulse quicken. Inside, they were greeted by a curator, a poised woman whose eyes sparkled with intrigue. Welcome, Maya shared her story, her voice steady, as she revealed the coat's connection to her father and its journey from a thrift store to this moment. The curator listened intently, nodding along, her expression thoughtful. It sounds fascinating. That's what I believe, Maya said, her voice strong. The curator's gaze turned serious. Maya gasped, adrenaline rushing through her. This was beyond anything she had dared to imagine. Yes, we want to highlight the importance of clothing as expressions of identity and emotion, the curator explained, excitement bubbling in her tone. James turned to Maya, eyes gleaming. Did you hear that? And we'd love for you to be part of it, the curator added, her voice inviting. Maya felt her heart swell, emotions humming in her chest. Thank you so much. With the meeting concluded, they stepped out into the sunlight, feeling exhilarated by what had just unfolded. The air felt electric, filled with dreams realized. Maya asked, a laugh spilling from her lips. Not at all. As the days turned into weeks leading up to the exhibit, they poured their souls into preparations, Maya curating photos and stories, each moment intertwining with her past. At night, they stayed up late, brainstorming ways to present the coat's history as an immersive experience. The morning of the exhibit arrived, and anticipation hummed through the air. The gallery was alive with the energy of art lovers, each eager to step into the narratives crafted through the display. Maya felt a wave of emotions crash over her as she stood in front of the coat, now encased in glass, surrounded by photographs and tapestries of memories that spoke of life, love, and legacy. It had transformed into a symbol of connection, threading through time in ways she had never expected. Look at all the people, James said, standing beside her. As guests filtered in, Maya noted the way their eyes lit up, the smiles and nods of understanding exchanged as they connected with the story behind the coat. Even shy whispers began to emerge, followed by laughter and reflection. This is amazing, Maya whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. You created something incredible out of nothing, James said, pride lighting up his face. In that moment, Maya realized the coat was more than just an object. It had breathed new life into her father's legacy and allowed others to explore their connections to their pasts. As stories unfolded throughout the exhibit, she noticed how women and men of all ages shared their histories, linking their emotions to the fabric wrapped around them. As the evening wore on, Maya felt a sense of fulfillment washing over her, a warmth that confirmed she had made the right choices. The coat had sparked conversations, ignited curiosity, and allowed people to open up about their own stories in ways she could have never imagined. Later that night, standing amidst the soft hum of conversation, James whispered, "This is just the beginning." "I completely agree," Maya responded, her heart brimming with determination. In that moment, the weight of possibility settled over them, a shared journey that had begun with a mere smile at a coat. They had turned a chance meeting into an opportunity, transforming memories and connections into something much larger than themselves. As they stepped outside, the world felt different. The streets were illuminated, reflecting possibilities and new beginnings. Maya glanced at James, the shared energy buzzing between them. "Thank you for being part of this," she said sincerely, her heart full. He smiled, a genuine warmth radiating from him. "No, thank you." As they parted ways that evening, Maya took a deep breath, realizing that life was not just about an old coat, but rather the stories that connect us all. Looking at the city lights twinkling in the distance, she felt empowered by the clarity that had emerged from this adventure, a clarity that ignited the spark within her. Every chance encounter could lead to something profound. Every shared story carried meaning. And in that moment, as she walked forward, Maya felt ready, not just for what lay ahead, but to embrace the beautiful uncertainty of life, armed with hope and the knowledge that all it takes is a smile to start something extraordinary. Maya stepped off the crowded bus, her breath visible in the cold October air. The city felt alive today. Cars honked, laughter echoed down the street, and the smell of freshly baked goods wafted from nearby cafes. But despite the buzz, she felt the familiar ache of loneliness. As she walked, her eyes wandered, catching on a tall man at the crosswalk, clad in a striking plaid coat. The fabric looked well-loved, its colors vibrant amidst the muted gray of the day. Something about that coat tugged at her heart. Called out, surprised by her own boldness. He turned, a look of surprise morphing into a broad smile that illuminated his face. "Thanks, I found it at a thrift store," he replied, radiating warmth as he adjusted the collar. Maya felt an unexpected twinge of joy. That coat, she could have sworn she had seen one just like it on her father, back when they would take long strolls through the park. "It's got character," she added, leaning against the lamppost, soaking in the familiarity creeping back into her mind. "Right, you can't beat a good vintage find," he said, stepping a little closer. But just as the moment deepened, a sharp buzz from her pocket disrupted them. Panic surged as she opened the email. "Dear Mr. Anderson," it began, and her stomach dropped. She wasn't Mr. Anderson, but the email went on to explain the significance of a coat, his coat, and detailed insights that took her breath away. It mentioned something about a recent acquisition and instructed the owner to contact them immediately. Maya looked back at the man, breathless. "Excuse me, James," he replied, brow furrowing, confusion flickering across his face. She asked, heart racing, "Yeah, that's me. I think I just got an email about your coat, she stammered, disbelief setting in. His eyes widened, excitement dancing in the air. My coat, Maya quickly summarized the email, her voice trembling. James stepped closer, realization dawning on him. Are you serious? I just bought this at a thrift store. Maya exclaimed, her heart racing. They stared at each other, the weight of the moment hanging in the air like magic waiting to be released. Let's figure this out, James declared, determination gleaming in his eyes. They shared contact information, both swept up in the adrenaline of their discovery. As Maya walked away, anticipation bubbled in her chest. Could this coat lead to something extraordinary? Their plans for tomorrow filled her mind. They would meet at the same cafe where they had first crossed paths, both ready to dive deep into the mystery. The next day felt excruciating. Maya paced her apartment, her thoughts swirling with questions. What if they uncovered something incredible? What if it led to a dead end? When she arrived at the cafe, she spotted James at a corner table, his expression a mix of enthusiasm and nervous energy. He said, beaming as she approached. Absolutely, she replied, feeling the buzz of excitement rising inside her. They pulled out their laptops, fingers flying across keyboards in a flurry of searches. They combed through articles, archives, and artist portfolios, everything leading them down the rabbit hole of history. Hours flew by, conversations filled with jokes and excitement, both lost in the exhilaration of discovery. Suddenly, an article caught Maya's eye, each word sending shockwaves through her. James. She turned her laptop around to face him, and he leaned closer. James stared at the screen, disbelief etched on his features. No way. But the article detailed the artist's flair for vintage clothing, emphasizing how he showcased his personal style through garments he claimed ownership of. Maya whispered, feeling her heart race. James shook his head in wonder. They decided they needed to reach out to the artist's estate. Together, they crafted an email, a meticulous explanation of their connection to the coat. The words tumbled out in enthusiasm, a hope that felt electrifying. With the email sent, anticipation gnawed at them. Maya worried aloud. We will, James replied, confidence shining in his eyes. Days turned into a week, and the wait felt agonizing. Maya's mind spiraled with doubts. What if they were chasing shadows? Just as she began to lose hope, her phone bleeped with a new notification one quiet afternoon. She thought, her pulse racing as she opened the email. Dear Ms. Anderson, it started, and her heart sank. James, she shouted, excitement erupting within her. Maya read aloud, eyes wide with disbelief. Can you believe it? James exclaimed, grinning ear to ear. When the day of the meeting arrived, they walked into the gallery with trepidation. The air hummed with creativity, paintings and sculptures spilling lifeblood into the room. Standing before them was a curator with sharp eyes and an inviting smile. Welcome, Maya took a deep breath and shared the coat's journey from the thrift shop to their discovery, the connection to the artist untangling as she spoke. The curator listened intently, nodding along. This coat carries a unique story, she said thoughtfully. It's a part of art history. Maya felt the weight of those words press against her chest, a rush of emotion swelling inside. Seriously, the curator continued. James's eyes sparkled with excitement. After the meeting, Maya and James stepped outside, sunlight flooding over them, illuminating the path ahead. We made it, Maya said, disbelief washing over her. Not just that, Maya, we found something larger than ourselves, James replied, a soft conviction in his voice. Over the weeks leading to the exhibit, they poured themselves into preparation. Maya curated photographs, stories, memories that spoke of her father's love for life. Each night, they crafted ways to connect visitors to the history of the coat. When the opening day arrived, excitement buzzed in the air, anticipation thick enough to taste. As guests began to trickle in, the gallery filled with laughter, curiosity, and an energetic spirit. Maya stood before the exhibit, feeling tears prick at the corners of her eyes as she witnessed the coat displayed prominently, surrounded by photographs of her father and snippets of the artist's life. It had transformed into something greater than just fabric. It was a bridge across time and identity. James stepped beside her, a sense of pride shining in his face. Look at everyone's reactions, he said, his voice almost lost in the sea of conversation. Intrigued visitors leaned in closer, eyes lighting up as they read about the coat's history and the stories shared. Maya felt her heart swell, absorbing their energy, rejoicing in the connection they had created. As the night progressed, it became something deeper. People began to share their own ties to the past, revealing how clothing had shaped their lives, how memories intertwined with fabric. Later, as the crowd dissipated, Maya found herself standing with James, reflecting on what they had built together. This was more than just a coat, she whispered. Exactly. We turned a moment into a movement, he replied, a smile forming on his lips. Just then, a woman approached them, visibly moved. I wanted to thank you for this exhibit, she said, her eyes shimmering with tears. I lost my father last year, and this reminded me of our connection through clothing. In that moment, Maya felt a rush of warmth, realizing that their journey had resonated far beyond them. It was a reminder, every coat, every piece of fabric held a world of stories waiting to be uncovered. As they quietly celebrated their success, a rush of emotions filled the gallery. Dancing between joy and nostalgia, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose flowing through her veins. She thought of her father, his laughter echoing in the corners of her mind, telling her that adventures often awaited those willing to chase them. But then, as the final guests trickled out, Maya's phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen. It was a new email. Her heart dropped as she read. "Dear Ms. Anderson, we regret to inform you that we need to discuss the coat's provenance further." James asked, noticing her sudden pallor. "It's about the coat," Maya whispered, her voice trembling. "They have concerns." Suddenly, the room felt dense with unspoken tension. The walls that had seemed to shine with possibilities moments ago now felt like they were closing in. James asked, stepping closer, eyes narrowing with concern. "I don't know." "They say there are complications and we need to discuss its ownership," she replied, panic rising in her chest. He asked, disbelief clinging to his words. Before she could answer, another wave of dread washed over her. This had started as a simple smile at a coat, a serendipitous moment that had turned into a journey, but now it threatened to spiral into chaos. As they stood there, uncertainty cloaked them like a shroud. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something far larger than they had ever expected. If ownership was in question, what would that mean for the stories they had unearthed? The uncertainty loomed, leaving them both breathless, questioning what came next. With heavy hearts, they realized their adventure was far from over. It was evolving into something deeper, a challenge that would test both their resolve and their bond. As the city lights flickered on outside, casting shadows around them, Maya felt her spirit waver, but her determination harden. This was just another chapter. With James by her side, she wasn't ready to back down. "Let's figure this out," she said, meeting his gaze with a newfound strength. And with that, they stepped toward the door, ready to confront whatever awaited them in the uncertain future, armed with the shared belief that their story was far from finished. The new challenge loomed ahead, but together, they would face it head-on.